Welcome, I'm Melanie Phillips, and I'm here with special guest Mas Vidal for Banyan Botanicals. And let me just introduce Mas to you briefly, and then you'll really get a sense of him as we dive into the interview. But Mas is a yogi, a mystic, and practitioner of Ayurveda. Mas has become one of the most influential yoga and Ayurveda teachers in the world and offers unique certification training programs throughout the United States, Asia, and India. Mas enjoys teaching integral yoga classes, offering health and wellness lectures, and giving workshops that embrace core Ayurvedic principles. His work is primarily influenced by the lineage-based traditions of India, with prominence to the teachings of Yogananda and Shivananda. In 2014, he appeared in the triumphant film Awake, The Life of Yogananda. And as an Ayurvedic practitioner, he maintains an active international counseling practice that includes yoga and Vedic astrology. He is the founder-director of Dancing Shiva Yoga Ayurveda, an international nonprofit educational organization and center based in Southern California. And Mas is also the author of the recently released book, Sun, Moon, and Earth. And I'm stoked that he is here with us today to share some of his insight and wisdom on his journey through both yoga and Ayurveda. So welcome, Mas.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Yeah. Can you share with our listeners what first drew you into yoga? How did you get on that path?
Well, it was really a heart-based search. It came more from the spiritual side. I was really drawn to the mystical aspects of it, the meditation, what is the purpose of life, what does true love mean, Dharma, all of those core principles of yoga were really intriguing to me. And I was at a point in my life where, starting to shift my awareness and my connection to natural things and the nature of existence. And these big questions started to run through my mind, and by no coincidence, yoga appeared.
Beautiful. And was it just something that happened naturally over time? Was there a situation in your life or event that spurred this seeking of the yoga, or did it sort of arrive on your doorstep?
It all happened really suddenly. Just after undergraduate, and I actually tell just a portion of this story in my book, I came straight out to California. I knew from a very young age that I had a draw to California. There was something in my consciousness that was drawing me there. Later, I discovered it was, connections to having been there lives before. So the only person that I knew in California who was married to a cousin in our family introduced me to yoga, Ayurveda, and Vedic astrology all in the same year. And I was 23 years old. And then that seed was planted. I didn't jump right into those traditions, but it was part of a greater unfolding where that search now really took fire. And I explored major religions, all types of healing modalities, fitness, wellness, all aspects of it. And gradually, the Indic Vedic traditions came back to really answer the call of my heart and soul, which was, we've got it all covered for you. Don't need to go anywhere else.
Right. Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
And how do you see the sister sciences of both yoga and Ayurveda? How do you see those really working together in a practical way for people today?
Well, my view is that they're inseparable. And as ancient as yoga and Ayurveda are, I find that they are still the most practical and adaptable systems for the modern age. We're in a society today, in an era of technological advancement. Everything is moving faster. People are getting more and more stressed. Their mind-body relationship is essentially fracturing. They're not connected to their bodies. They're not connected to this inner temple that they have within themselves. And so yoga, for me, in the way that I've learned it and teach it, is a very, very powerful system to reconnect that mind-body relationship and bring them together in a harmonious way so that you can maximize the strength of your body, you can increase longevity in your life, live in a more balanced way so you don't constantly ride the roller coaster of flus and viruses and all the things that are floating around. And so it gives you a great resilience. You know, I often say it's like a bumper. It really strengthens our ability to move through life's variableness and its constant erratic changing nature. And Ayurveda tells us how to live in a more detailed way in relationship to nature, in relationship to the cycles of the day, the changes from morning, noon to evening, how to move through the seasons, you know, and the shifts that occur in each season, how to move through the different periods in our life. You know, we change substantially after our early 20s, and our physiology starts to function in a different way. We start to think differently. And then there's another shift later, as you know, in our 50s, 60s, where the body starts to change, our connection to the body starts to change. And Ayurveda gives us tremendous insights and real practical principles to adapt ourselves to those changes and to those fluctuations. Because, you know, as this great Buddhist teacher once said, the only constant in life is change. And we have to sort of adapt to that. And yoga and Ayurveda are here to heal our mind, to balance and heal our bodies. And together, they are the most effective means for achieving success. That's what success is to me.
Mm. And how do you go about with all of those variables, the time of life, the time of day, the season, the climate? How do you go about teaching groups of people yoga? What is your perspective, and how do you bring in Ayurvedic principles into your yoga classes or groups of students? How can that work?
Yeah, that's an important question because we're all very different, as you know. And when we go into a yoga room, there's many different levels of practice and experience, many different body types, and people are coming from very different cultures as well, and countries. So what I try to do is speak the language of individuality and to encourage each person to understand who they are and what their true nature is, what their body-mind type is, and what their life purpose is. And so what I try to do is sort of stir and spark this inner fire in them of inquiry and self-inquiry to begin to ask those questions. You know, who am I? What is my purpose? What is my body like? How does my body function? What are my body's needs? And to recognize that those needs, our bodies, our desires, and our intentions are all very different. And each one of us has a very unique mind-body, if you will, complex. And so a person starts to ask those questions, then they realize, yes, you know, you're right. I noticed this in my body, and I noticed that it changed a little bit during that time of the year. And they begin to understand that we're a small piece of this grand universe. And we're a replica of that. And we're all connected in some way. And so that's a beautiful sort of invitation for each person to begin to explore and find their way. There's no one way to yoga and Ayurveda. We have to each find our unique, individualistic way to heal ourselves.
I'm so glad you touched upon that, and it truly is the essence of both yoga and Ayurveda, is that individual pathway towards liberation, which both of these systems, I believe, lead us to. And it sounds like in your classes, there's a lot of space and invitation to your students listening to their own body and exploring how their body is in the moment, not how it was last week or next week. It's just like, how is it right now? And being able to adapt to that, which I think is a sign of a mature teacher. I know that working with yoga teachers and teaching yoga teachers myself, you can differentiate the younger yoga teachers to the more mature teachers from, I think, that space that's created for the students to listen inwards, opposed to just following what the teacher's doing.
Yes, I agree with you, and thank you. I think we speak the same language, and those yogis or yoga practitioners that also embrace Ayurvedic principles and Ayurvedic knowledge begin to understand yoga in a very different way, in a very unique way. And they begin to understand that yoga, like Ayurveda, is an integral approach to healing, to wellness. It's not just one thing that will change us. We have to look at the big picture. We have to look at all those components of our life, diet, and exercise. And this is, I think, a growing demand today, this integral wellness concept.
Beautiful. And Mas, will you share with us how you personally incorporate Ayurveda into your day-to-day life? And I'm thinking here more specific practices that you personally do and that you've found very helpful in your life.
Yeah, there's so many aspects to it, but in the most practical sense, what's most important for me is listening to my body. And each day checking in with my body. And there's different ways to do that. One, as you know, is the wonderful practice of self-massage, Abhyanga. This is a practical way and a very nutritious way of feeding our body. It's the skin, as Ayurveda acknowledges, is the largest organ in the body, and we can affect all of the tissues of the body and prevent ailments from coming on. It keeps our bodies strong, and it gives us a sense of how we're feeling when we're actually contacting and touching our body. The other aspect is, some daily yoga. I don't really believe that it's necessary to do a long or extensive 60 to 90 or 2-hour physical yoga practice. I'm more prescriptive and selective about choosing maybe 2 or 3 poses and maybe a few sun salutations, and use those postures specifically according to my constitution and what my dosha type is needing that day. Then the other factor for me too is obviously the seasonal factors. When we move into different seasons, boy, does that affect us. We just feel the change, the need for more warmth in our body, more heating and warming foods, or so many things. So I try to be real practical, but the main thing is, am I keeping my mind-body relationship intact? My view is, and I wrote about this extensively in my book, it's one of the broader or main themes of the book, is that disease, disorder, dosha begins with mind-body fracturing. When we break the relationship between the mind and the body, we open up that door to imbalance and disorder. When we keep these two entities, these two instruments that we're born with as a spirit, as a soul, when we work with them and keep them connected as they are intrinsically connected, they're really one thing, right? The body is just a grosser, denser form of energy, and the mind is a subtler form, more light-based, more etheric-based of energy and atoms and cells. And so these two work together. They work together to teach us how to enjoy life, and they teach us to how to heal ourselves and understand what we need to continue this journey and to enjoy this thing that we call life. So,
yeah. So for what I'm hearing is for your daily practice, like Abhyanga, the self-massage is a big piece of that for you. Yoga, and it can be a simple seasonal practice, a few specific asana according to you, what you need as sun salutations. And then what about the mental aspect? Do you have a daily meditation practice, or are you focusing on just moment-to-moment awareness? How do you keep your mind, I don't even want to say steady, but how do you keep the container of manas, I don't even know how to say it, not even under control, just available and manageable, I suppose?
yes. Meditation, I would say, is the bedrock of my practice. It's my daily priority, because as yoga and Ayurveda teach us that the body is a reflection of the mind, and the body is basically just a mirror of the mind. Whatever we're feeling and experiencing systemically, physiologically, is a reflection of the mind. So basically, psychology and biology are inter-exchanging with each other constantly. And I start my day with a couple hours of silent meditation. And I try to do that first and foremost before anything else. And then I meditate again, anywhere from 5 minutes to 15, 20 minutes in the middle of the day. And then in the evenings, I'll meditate an additional 30 minutes to 90 minutes in the evening to end my night.
And what would you, because you're committed. Like I love that and hear like that's the bedrock for you. But for people just starting out with meditation, or they haven't carved out that time in their schedule, or they're just not sure how to start, where to start, what to do, what would you recommend to people that are either new to meditation or just struggling with creating a meditation practice?
I don't encourage someone to sit and meditate unless their lifestyle is intact and they're living on a day-to-day basis in a more balanced way. And this brings into importance the daily routine of Ayurveda, which we call the Dinacharya. The daily routine is essentially a structure that is established to connect us, our spirit, our uniqueness, to nature. And self-care is the first step in that direction. As long as the temple is dirty, so to speak, or the house is dirty, there's no space for energy and consciousness and wellness to exist. So we have to learn self-care. Self-care breeds self-love, compassion, understanding, patience. And this is the hallmark of Ayurveda. We can't just jump and skip over to enlightenment, we have to learn how to take care of what God gave us, which was this beautiful body born of 5 elements with various energies and capacities, and we have to really learn that. So I really get people back to that. Get connected to your body. Are you exercising regularly? Are you cooking it for yourself? Are you doing some walks? I encourage people to stop paying other people to do things for them, like wash their car. Often people are paying others to do their laundry, clean their house. And I find that you can take those tasks, those rituals of life, and make them meditations for yourself and self-disciplinary actions to connect and use our bodies again. We spend too much time sitting around, pushing buttons, and hoping that things will get done for us. And this is not the way of health and wellness. This is not the way of Ayurveda. Ayurveda wants us to have discipline. It wants us to have a good sense of well-being. And so that's really where I go to it. And then later, what I do is I test people. I say, well, do this. Show me that you're really committed to this. And let's see if your lifestyle reflects a pathway to spirituality.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And what do you say to the excuse? Because it seems a very common one. I know with my clients, one of the first resistances is time. I don't have enough time to do blah, blah, blah. How do you manage those complaints? Are people just not ready? Do they need to give something up? What do you say when time is the reason why people can't take care of themselves or focus on the self-care that is going to make the changes necessary?
Yeah, you're right. I think the song remains the same. We hear that song over and over again like a broken record. And it's really, I'm very direct with people and my clients as well. And I tell them basically, look, your health is in your hands. And Ayurveda is a very powerful system, a science that has a tremendous wealth of knowledge. In order for that wisdom to really become effective, each person has to take responsibility, 100% responsibility for their health and their capacity to discipline themselves. And I very, very openly say, do you think that you are ready to begin to take the steps and make the changes in your life to discipline yourself and apply these teachings and the great wisdom of Ayurveda? If you're not, tell me right now. I won't waste your time. You won't spend more money and waste your money doing this, and we can move on. And the other aspect is, I ask this question, it's really important. And I think this is an important question for everybody to ask themselves, especially those of you out there that are watching this video, and if you're intrigued and you're interested in healing, look at the patterns of your life over the last 10, 15 years, depending on your age. And look at those patterns and your relationship to your body and what you've done to take care of yourself. If you have a pattern, for example, of starting something, maybe for a few days, a week, a month, and then you drop it, you forget about it, and there is no consistent pattern of mind-body relationship, of exercise, wellness, dietary, all that, chances are you can't do this alone. And you need the help and the guidance of a counselor, or you need to get into a group setting where you have collective support, collective consciousness of other people that are also working to improve that relationship in their health. Now, if you have that, and there are many people that are doing a lot and have that connection to their body and mind, then they will do great with Ayurveda, and they can do that alone. And you give them the wisdom, and you hand the ball over to them, and they run with it, and they become great examples for others to follow, and many of them become great teachers. Yeah.
Super. Yeah. No, I love your frankness, and I think you speak the truth of it. And that's been my experience too of we need support to make the changes. Otherwise we would have made them already.
That's right.
So,
It keeps us busy.
exactly. Otherwise, yeah, what would we do with ourselves?
Yeah.
And what aspects of Ayurveda or yoga in your life are really stoking your interest? What are you really jazzed about for yourself at the moment?
Well, it's always a continued sort of process of refining health and optimizing your health and wellness. One recent lesson was that I was, for many years I lived with the attitude that my body was invincible. I was a former athlete, a physical culturist, and had a very strong, intense discipline over my body. And I picked up a cough several weeks ago, and a week after, I was doing some counseling with my counselor of many years, and he said, "Look, don't forget, you're not the body. And sometimes when you're driving your car, it gets a little dirty, and it gets dinged up while you're driving around getting to explore this world. So you got to bring it into the shop. You got to clean it up a little bit, give it a nice little detail, and wash it up, and take care of it again. And that's part of being in a body. Don't become too associated with that, and go on, keep moving onwards and upwards. And so there's a little bit more detachment. There's a little bit more self-love and compassion that I've brought in, and I'm enjoying it. So.
And is that like the dance, right, between the discipline and perhaps it's the connotation that go with discipline. We often think discipline is like beating ourselves up, and I think that's the opposite of what we're saying in yoga and Ayurveda, but it is this dance between the discipline and the self-love and nurturance. So how do you guide people through that to keep the discipline to make the changes, but at the same time bringing more compassion and love of self into what they're doing?
Yeah, you're right. I think it's a tricky thing, and that balance of life in that regard is one of the biggest challenges. One thing I often look at is constitution. In Ayurveda, Pitta types tend to be very well driven and very disciplinary, and have a very sharp kind of edge to them. And so I'm very aware at times of what is the force behind that. And I try to acknowledge what force is behind that person. Is it that fiery sharpness? Or is it that vata dosha, the wind-like approach to it, where it's very erratic, it's inconsistent? And I try to see it from that angle. Because as Einstein said, everything is energy. And we're really learning to work with our energy. And energy is constantly changing. And places, times, so many factors influence our energy. So.
Thank you. And I'm just wondering, Mas, before we wrap up our conversation together, would you be able to take the listeners through a short, like 5-minute meditation or settling practice?
Yeah, sure, if you like.
Yeah, I
Just
think that would just be nice.
calming meditation or something.
Yeah, that would be lovely. Anything that comes to you, just so that we can kind of tap into that energy and do a little practice together.
Okay, sure. Well, the simplest, some of the basics are to sit with a straight spine. If you're in a chair, make sure your feet are flat on the floor, or if you're in a seated position, sit comfortably with your legs crossed. Um, and begin to close your eyes and connect your mind to your spine. Visualize your spine like this tree or a very firm branch, this trunk that is strong, that is firm, that is being supported by muscles. And try to bring your mind into that alignment, connect to the spine. And as you feel that connection, this is your first connection to the body, and the mind and the body sort of merging into each other. And then take a few deep breaths. Try to breathe mostly through the nose, inhaling, and an exhale out slowly. And just make sure you're not holding any tension in the body. So again, another deep breath. Just feel the inhalation in your entire chest, abdomen, lungs expanding, and then I'll exhale the complete breath outwards. And take as many breaths as you need, but more importantly is just to begin the very simple observation of your breath. That means that you're not trying to breathe, you're just watching breath. You're watching it flow in and out involuntarily. It's just doing its own thing. And sometimes it flows and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it may not flow in for a few moments, and that's okay. Now take this last visual of the tree and your spine. So visualize a tree there. And the tree has tremendous roots. And those roots are connected to the earth. The earth is our body. The trunk and the spine is our extension of the earth. The body is born of the earth. Now visualize in the sky, as if you're looking up into the sky, the moon, a bright, full moon, soft pearl-like color. And visualize the moon as your head. So the earth and the tree is your body. And at the top of this tree body of yours is the moon. And see that connection of the moon and the earth. And then you take another deep breath and you question or you inquire, where does the light of the moon come from? Where is that light emanating from? So keep seeing that white light. And begin to visualize rays of light shining upon that moon and illuminating that moon, and see those rays like beams of light that are hitting the moon, and start to sort of follow those rays, follow those light beams, and begin to let your mind and your consciousness and your whole creative vibration follow those beams of light. And suddenly we see light beyond lights. We visualize ourselves suddenly smiling, dancing, because we're so thrilled, we're so motivated by this light. And we turn towards that light. And our eyes open, and we realize it's the sun. And suddenly there's a great feeling of love. And suddenly we feel ourselves hugging ourselves. Visualize yourself hugging, holding yourself, acknowledging your recognition, your connection to that light, that sun. And now you feel your earth, your body, your mind, and the softness of our thoughts connect and completely dissolve and merge into the sunlight. Feel peaceful, feel gratitude, and slowly open your eyes.
Wow, what a beautiful tattva element meditation. That was the full circle. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I enjoy those images and those symbols.
Yeah, so beautiful and powerful. And I love the simplicity of it and how that allows us to go inward and connect to the elements that are within every cell, even.
Yeah. Well, that's why I chose those planets as the topic or the title of my book, because our bodies are born of the earth, our minds of the moon, and our innermost being is the soul, Soleil, the sun. And the three make up body, mind, soul, body, mind, spirit. And yoga and ayurveda are the greatest wisdoms to connect us again and connect our earth, moon, and sun together, or sun, moon, earth. So, yes, thank you. And
Thank you so much, Moss. Thank you
yeah.
for your time, for your energy. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and insight with all of us. And once again, I'm Melanie Phillips here with Moss Vidal of Dancing Shiva. And please check out his new book, Sun, Moon, and Earth. And thank you to Banyan Botanicals for making this interview possible as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Namaste.
Namaste.